Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Today we're back on the KCS Greenville sub for a JMRI video about capacity issues in yards, planning for your inputs and outputs, but also talking about how to create through cars that don't actually get switched onto your layout. Stay tuned. Alright, so here's the plan. We're going to talk about this through train that I have set up, and this is one of the first through trains I have. It's a manifest train that runs from Dallas to Shreveport. And the issue with this train is that we have these cars that are in front of the DPU being our distributed power unit. These cars in front are the cars that I want JMRI to take for interchange. It doesn't have to take all of them, but I want it to be able to take some of them. Sometimes it'll take all, sometimes it'll probably take none. But then the cars behind this DPU, I don't want these cars to be switched out in this yard. I want to simulate that these are pre-blocked and set there so they're just tacked on the end of the train and they are not going to be coming off. The problem is if the yard here serves these car types, then JMRI could pull them off. So what you do is something that's actually extremely simple. So we're going to head over to JMRI and take a look about how we can create some through cars, such that you can have through cars that are shown the same but never taken off your trains. Alright, so right now these are the cars that I have in JMRI. These are the exact same cars you just saw in the image, or sorry, the clip there of the train on the layout. So I haven't done any loads or anything yet. I literally just put the cars in with their lengths, their types, and then their road names. So you'll notice some of these cars have a -T at the end. So cars with a -T at the end are cars that I have labeled as through cars. And so when you label them with a dash after their car type, anything that comes after that is not shown on the manifest. So I have a sample manifest I'll show you in just a minute so you can see this. So the two cars I'm going to focus on to make my point are these auto racks, because I don't have any auto racks currently that are not listed as through cars. And so it'll be easy to spot those in the switch list. But all of these cars are on the same train. And the way I've got it is all the cars that don't have a -T are the cars that JMRI could pull off of this train. And then all the cars that are -T, it will not. And here is why that works. If you look at the location and you look at the car types, once you create those car types with the -Ts, they do show up in the setup. So when you're here editing the location, you can select those. And I have them all selected off. So Hugh Springs Yard will never pull any of those -T cars. And that's exactly what I want, because now whenever a train comes through, it will only pull these other cars. Notice I do have an auto rack car available that's not a -T. So when that happens, when a car comes through that is not a -T, it could get pulled. But all the -T cars will never get served by this yard. And real quick, the way that you would add that is where it says type here, you would go and click edit. It brings this menu over, and then you could type in whatever you wanted, and then -T or -S or -C, literally whatever you want. And of course, they'll show up as car types with a separate name, which is great. But the good news is, when you pull them up on the manifest, here we go. So currently we don't have any work at Hugh Springs Yard. That's because technically there's nowhere for the cars to go. So the train doesn't actually drop any off, although I have it programmed that it can drop some off, it just doesn't. But let's go find those auto racks. Notice, look at their title right here. These auto racks, there's that one and there's this one. They do not have the -T designation. But remember, I only had auto racks that were -Ts, so all the cars that were -Ts don't show that way, but they will never actually come off the train. And so that makes it really easy when you're running through trains that basically repeatedly run from one end of staging to the other. It makes it very simple for you to only pull the cars that come off the front, so that you can easily just add cars to the front or take cars from the front, and you don't have to switch out this DPU. Now, if you want to switch out the DPU and have the entire train terminate at a yard, well, then that's different. Don't use this through train concept. But now I want to transition to the whiteboard, and we're going to talk about a little bit of math as we talk about balancing inputs and outputs. Alright guys, welcome to the whiteboard. So let's talk about how we balance inputs and outputs on this layout. We only have one major yard to show and talk about, so let's get right into it. This yard is in Hugh Springs. It has 9 tracks, and the way this works is essentially when you want to try to figure out how to balance your cars moving in and out of your layout, you need to do this for every yard that you have that is going to originate trains. Okay, and you'll see later why we want to start with trains that are being originated. So from this yard, we are originating a couple of trains. So we've got a southbound local. I haven't given it a name yet, but I will definitely give it a KCS style name. We have a eastbound local. We have a westbound local. And then also, even though this train doesn't actually exist in real life, as do most of these, they don't, we have a westbound way freight that is originating here as well. And I add this train just, to add some operating interest and some things for people to do. We also have a UP interchange train that is going to leave as well. And then let's see, what else was there? There was something else that we had as well. All right, I remember now. It took me a second, but we have a special southbound local that heads to the town of Diana. So we'll call that the Diana local. And this is a local that pretty much just runs cars from our yard in Hugh Springs to a very small yard in Diana that serves a little custom local over there on the south branch to Longview. So each of these trains has a limit in JMRI of 1,500 feet. So our potential outputs is basically 6 times 1,500 feet. So we're looking at 9,000 feet of cars that could leave Hugh Springs Yard in any sort of basic operating day, so to speak. So then we got to figure out how we balance this with our inputs. The reason you want to think about this is because you want to make sure that you don't overload the capacity of your yard. And since all of our work is going to come through this one yard, we need to make sure that we don't put too much, we want to make sure we don't put too many cars in there and get it all jammed up. Plus, this will help you decide if you need a second crew to either build or break down trains, because with some experimentation, you can figure out how long it takes on average to switch, a 1,000-foot train. So if it takes me 15 minutes to switch a 1,000-foot train in real life, then I'm looking at, 15 minutes times 9. That's a lot of minutes. I'm pretty sure that is almost, that's past 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's quite a bit of time, actually. And so you got to plan for that, because that's time that you have to give your yard crew to be able to switch, that you can't have trains coming in or out of that yard. That was a little bit of a side piece, so congratulations. There's your freebie for the day. So for inputs in this case, fortunately, it actually balances out pretty well currently. So we have 2 manifests that come in and out. These each are bringing in up to a potential maximum of 2,000 feet each. So they're not necessarily going to always bring in 2,000 feet, but they could bring in 2,000 feet. So when you do that times 2, that is 4,000 feet. And then what we have is we have a UP train that comes in, and this one can bring 1,500 feet in. It usually will bring a full 1,500 feet in, most likely, but it could also take 1,500 feet, which is fine because, we listed that as one of our outputs. So it's okay to list it also as an input. And then after that, we also have a second area of a UP interchange, but it does not interchange a full train. So if we roughly estimate that to be about 500 feet, then in total, but for UP, we're looking at 2,000 feet. So this means that my inputs are about 6,000 feet. So this means that at any given time, once everything is kind of operating, you've got 6,000 in and you've got 9,000 out. So this means that on a theoretical basis, the most that you're ever going to have your locals or any of your outbound trains, the most capacity they're going to carry out of this yard is 66%. So they're going to run at 2/3 capacity. That also means that theoretically speaking, your yard is never going to fill beyond 2/3. This is a good safe threshold for making sure that you don't get too jammed up where you can't operate. However, it is fun sometimes to push that a bit. So I'm going to make some adjustments to try to get it to 80%. And the way I'm going to do that is I have 2 other through trains that aren't exactly manifests that I designed in order to switch this yard, but I'm going to basically make it where the tail end of those trains could carry some extra, manifest freight that could be dropped off here, or on a couple of the intermodal trains that run from Dallas to Shreveport. As they do in real life, I'm going to tack some manifest general freight cargo on the back of those, and that could be another good option in order to bring in some more cars. So in order to get it to 80%, in my case, I would need 7,200 feet of inputs, which means that between 2 intermodal trains and 2 manifest trains, I only need to bring in about 1,200 feet of cars, which is about 300 feet per train. All right, so this is just kind of a basic look at inputs and outputs, and you would want to do this for each yard that's going to originate or build trains. So since this is the one yard that's building trains outside of staging, this is the only yard that I have to work with. So the train I showed earlier was one of those just basic manifests that could drop off the 2,000 feet of train. So later on, once we get further on in development, I'll showcase some of these other through trains and kind of how we're going to operate those. But hope you guys enjoyed this. I looked at a bit different realm of stuff today. So it was fun, talking about capacity, inputs, outputs, traffic flow, and then also talking about how to book those cars so that they never get switched onto the layout and they just service through cars. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more, and I will catch you guys next time.